Test 1, test 2. Test 1, test 2. Uh-oh. Okay, oh, I'm connected to my Bluetooth speaker over in the other area. Hold on. Okay, so we're going to be chatting here about Beryl. There are two disturbances right now in the Caribbean. We'll let people join up here. I know fireworks probably about to start, trying to get this in before then. For Rudy, do you know what time the fireworks start, or Leslie? 9:30? 9:30. Okay, so we've got about 50 minutes before that. That's the downtown fireworks. We've got Beryl, which, by the way, just updated 10 minutes ago back to Category 3 status, and that's with shear that it's fighting off. So this thing is a juggernaut in the Western Caribbean. A little tropical wave behind it, following about 2 days behind Beryl. That's Invest 96L. We're not worried about that developing, but that system is going to continue to move toward us, and that's why we're going to keep rain in the forecast beyond Beryl's forecast. So I just wanted to acknowledge that feature is there. But Beryl, again, this just 10 minutes ago, as I was firing up this feed, this storm jumped back up to Cat 3 status. It is fighting wind shear, so that's hitting it right now. It's about to move into the Yucatan, the eastern side of the peninsula. The little island of Cozumel and Cancun on the mainland north of Cozumel. It looks like it's going to be a close call there. Looks like it's a little bit south of those locations, but it moved up from a Cat 2 to a Cat 3. But the wind speed increase wasn't that huge. It was a 110 mile per hour storm, at the last update, and then the special update that just came in raised it 5 miles per hour, which then bumped it to Category 3 status. And that was at 8:30. Again, that was literally as I was turning this thing on to go and give this update. And by the way, I always say this, give the time. July 4th, it's Thursday, and it is on our clock on our weather software, 8:43. So if you're watching this and it's not at that time, you're watching an old update whenever you're watching this. Beryl's moving 16 miles per hour to the west. The pressure's up from where it was when it was, a Cat 4, Cat 5 storm in the eastern Caribbean Sea. And again, landfall imminent, moving toward the Yucatan Peninsula. It will move over that location overnight. So this is the forecast cone. This was updated last at 4 p.m., but the update with the category increase says that it was updated at 8, but there has been no change to the cone since 4 p.m., and that cone is focused on the northeast Mexican Gulf coastline and the South Texas Gulf Coast for a landfall, which looks like it's going to be, sometime Sunday night or Monday morning. The speed kind of keeps getting adjusted, and there will be adjustments all the way up to landfall. That's just how it works. There's little adjustments here and there to account for different types of behavior that these storms are exhibiting. Case in point, the upgrade to Cat 3 status, at 8:30 tonight. So current forecast brings it up to Category 1 force as it approaches that Texas-Mexico border area on Sunday afternoon. And the Hurricane Center explicitly says in their discussion, if you're reading those, it provides some insight into their thinking on a lot of this stuff. They're saying that it's possible that there is increased intensification in the 12 to 18 hours leading up to landfall, which would mean, Sunday around 1 p.m. through, whenever it makes landfall, whether that's midnight Sunday night or 7 a.m. Monday morning, that there's going to be some intensification there right before landfall. So that's something we're also watching. Then a quick decrease in intensity with the center of the cone kind of up the Rio Grande and then into, west of San Antonio, kind of right over the watershed. That would be ideal, but there's a ton of uncertainty. The cone is wide, and the forecast could track anywhere within this cone, at 3 to 4 days time. The average error in the cone at 3 to 4 days out, which is where we are right now, is about 100 to 150 miles, off the center path in either direction. So there is still uncertainty. The models are keying in on that Texas-Mexico border. And I will say this, the National Hurricane Center on the track forecasting with this thing has been excellent. They have been so good with the center track of this storm. I just went and looked at how good at the verification. They're outperforming all of the models, and the track is only off at 3 days' time by about 50 miles, which is twice as good as average. So they're really doing a good job with the forecast track. Intensity is a much harder thing to predict, especially as you go out in time. Intensity forecasting is quite difficult, with tropical systems. So that's the latest with respect to the cone. A Category 1 approaching the Mexican or Texas coastline on late Sunday or into early Monday. And it's a Cat 3 right now. You see that weakening over the Yucatan on Friday when it's forecast to cross over and then get back into the Gulf as a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm. So from Saturday, 12:01 a.m. to Monday morning, that's the time it's going to have in the Gulf. So we're talking, maybe 2.5 days of time in the Gulf. So, we'll see how the intensity forecast changes if it does, but that's where we're at right now. A lot of people will say prepare for one category above what the forecast says. That would be Cat 2 for prep purposes, but not ready to go that far out with respect to intensity and exactly what it's going to be at landfall. This is water vapor imagery. That blob in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, that's Beryl. And I wanted to point out another feature here. Again, I don't have my little magic track capability on this computer, but there's a feature in the Gulf of Mexico that's an upper level low, and that feature may have a play on the future intensity of Beryl. If that feature that's in the kind of the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, north and west of the Yucatan, if that feature stays very close to Beryl, it's going to influence it by sending shear toward it and keeping it in check. If that feature's a little farther away than it is right now, this is kind of vague talking, but if it's a little farther away, it could act as an enhancement and actually help intensification. So that little upper level feature there that's north of the Yucatan, showing up on water vapor imagery, that's going to be something to pay attention to as Beryl gets into the Gulf of Mexico over the weekend. I just wanted to mention that because it's something that's catching my eye. As far as timing for when tropical storm force wind speeds may come in, we're looking, this is the most reasonable likely times. There's another one that's the most reasonable earliest times. I'm not showing that. I think this is the most likely that we'll start to see tropical storm force conditions move into parts of the Texas Gulf Coast. And it looks like it'll be on Sunday evening. So tropical storm force is 39 miles per hour, and Sunday evening, or greater, up to 73. Sunday evening, South Texas, the Valley, South Padre, those locations may start being under, that tropical storm force condition as early as Sunday around sunset. It's possible it's earlier, but this is the most likely arrival time for that level of wind given the current forecast. So, spaghetti plot here. This is the thing that we're really paying attention to, and it is more so there's a couple of things. We're going to make some leaps here. This is under the assumption that this storm tracks not only close to the middle of the current forecast cone, but it also tracks where all of these models are very tightly packed, which is close to the Texas-Mexico border, south of the coastal bend. That's where the consensus of the modeling is pointed right now. And this would be, again, the models are quicker than the forecast cone. You can see there that, the models are out ahead of the cone a little bit. But what happens after the landfall, if it is to pass that the landfall is near Texas-Mexico border, is some of the modeling is wanting to turn Beryl more on a due north track. And if that were to happen right after landfall and the storm just kind of tracked up east of the Highway 281 corridor, we would be talking about a storm that may not lose a ton of its strength because of the proximity to the Gulf of Mexico, despite a landfall that may happen south of the Texas-Mexico border. So if a storm kind of hugs that coastline but stays over land, it could still draw off of the warm Gulf waters. And that's a trend we're definitely very, very well aware of, and we're keeping very close eye on. That would bring in much more of an impact into play for the KIII viewing area. On the flip side, you see the green line, the European model. There's some others that are like that, but it's saying more of a track toward the Rio Grande, up the Rio Grande. And if there's a track that's close to the Rio Grande, more moving to the north and west, the impacts after landfall would be far lower for Corpus Christi, the coastal areas of the coastal bend, and really for a lot of our viewing area, the KIII viewing area. So a track close to the Rio Grande after landfall, lower impacts for the coastal bend, and a track that bends more north and more closely to the coastline, that's going to mean higher impacts for the coastal bend. That's something that we're watching. So we're talking about shifts in track from where that current line is of maybe 50 to 100 miles in one direction or the other, which that's a very small amount when you're talking about a 3 to 4 day forecast for a storm like this. Again, the average error at 3 to 4 days time is 100 to 150 miles in one way or the other. So, we're talking about big, ranges of possibilities. And given the current track, what we're looking at is only 50 to 100 miles. So, the minor shift, the minor changes in the forecast could have major implications and much larger changes to the possible impacts of a given location. Again, with the current forecast cone, if it's 50 miles to 100 miles more west of where it currently is, lot lower of an impact for the coastal bend. So keep that in mind as we start talking about these impact type graphics. This is early. You know, I might be going against my better judgment showing these at 3 to 4 days out, but I know people are hungry for the info, and I'm going to just be explicit about my thinking behind it and why, you know, I'm somewhat comfortable doing it at 3 to 4 days out. And I'm going to base all of these impact graphics on the center line of the Hurricane Center's forecast cone. I'm doing that because they've been exceeding expectations with this forecast track. So I'm trusting that that track is going to be good. There will be adjustments in it. You know, that's going to happen. I just want to make that clear. There's going to be adjustments. The forecast is going to shift around, and these numbers will shift around with not only respect to how that track shifts, but also if there are any intensity changes. So this is a somewhat conservative forecast. There's others that are much higher. There's others that are much lower, but I think it's, you know, easier to ramp up than to kind of take away. So I'm somewhat conservative here with these numbers. With the sustained values, right now, I updated it right before this. I put the sustained numbers, everyone in tropical storm force range from the orange color south. You know, the highest winds in the valley, they could have some hurricane force gusts there at this point, more so where that storm is moving in and close to center. Mid to high range tropical storm force conditions in that, you know, South Texas, the valley region. And then we're looking at mid-range to low-end tropical storm force conditions as of right now, given this cone. We're going to get another update before the 10 o'clock news, and this may change with that update. Reason to tune in, right? So that's the wind outlook, and I have it on the banner everywhere because I don't want someone to, you know, share it and say, oh, this is the way it's going to be 4 days from now. It's going to shift with the track. So just making that crystal clear. Rain chances, they're going to go up starting Sunday. Some of the outer rain bands of this system going to be starting to creep in on Sunday. But the best rain chance by far with Beryl will be on Monday. And again, the rainfall total forecast is going to be heavily dependent on how the center of this storm moves in. So right now I've got us between 3 and 6 inches in Corpus Christi, more so 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inches in the watershed region, and the highest totals in the valley. You know, some locations in the valley could get upwards of a half a foot of rain. So that'll be, you know, adjusted pending how forecast shifts around. But I've got the cone, or not the cone, the center line of the cone on there. It's not to say that's what will happen. I'm just using that as a guide to be able to make these forecasts. And again, this and that wind forecast, I'm literally on the computer drawing by hand this forecast. So this isn't from a model. It's not from, you know, it's straight off of this hand onto the mouse and into the computer. And that's how we do it, because then we can own the forecast. This is our forecast. This isn't the European. This isn't the GFS. This isn't, you know, whatever other model. This is our forecast. And we also can keep much better track of what we have said because we know what we have made, right? So that's the forecast, and that is between Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. In addition to this, there will be more rain in the forecast next week. Remember, we talked about Invest 96L. That'll be moving in with its moisture on Wednesday, maybe Thursday of next week. Wave forecast, the wave period picks up Saturday. That's when the rip current risk will start to really increase despite the wave heights not really increasing yet. Then the bigger waves start rolling in Sunday. I think they max out Monday, could have some 10-footers out there. These are near coast. They're not offshore. These are near the beach, at the beach. And that wave activity coupled with the new moon, we're going to have coastal flooding. As far as storm surge goes, the Hurricane Center hasn't started releasing those maps yet, but I would venture to say that we would see higher surge than Alberto, which was 3 to 3.5 feet here a couple weeks ago when that storm was in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. So day by day, the wave periods on Saturday pick up, elevating the rip current risk. Other than that, it's a hot day, kind of like today. Saturday, going to be just like today, which will be just like tomorrow, and then Saturday, plus the waves starting to get a little bit more long in their period. Sunday, Beryl will be approaching. It won't be moving inland yet, but some rain from the outer bands possible, some downpours on Sunday, more so later on in the day. Breezy southeasterly winds are going to start picking up, could have some 30-mile-an-hour gusts in the coastal bend. Monday looks like the higher impact day based on the cone, the forecast right now. That's when we'll see the strongest winds this storm has to offer this area, the heaviest rains with Beryl, and the biggest surf. And by Tuesday, it should be moving, either north or northwest of here. We'll still have some shower activity and elevated surf, but the primary impacts will be moving on. And that's how it looks on the 7-day, with respect to just what we're used to seeing. We've got that weather impact alert on second half of Saturday, all of Sunday, all of Monday, and that's really just to encompass and showcase when the most effect and impact Beryl will have on the coastal bend will be. Monday looking like a fairly windy tropical storm force conditions in play right now for Monday, given the current forecast track and intensity forecast. And then next week, we keep the rain in play, and that is because of that secondary tropical wave. So if you are just logging on, we've covered a lot on this. We've gone on for 25 minutes or so. I encourage you, if you're just logging on, to rewatch it. We went through the whole thing. If you're, not wanting to watch it again, maybe you prefer reading our website, the hurricane section of it. We've got a story there that's got all of these updates written out with the thoughts, the thinking, the graphics. There's a forecast video on there as well. So I encourage you to check that out if you're, seeking more information. Always have a trusted, credible source. Hurricane Center, they do an amazing job. Look at them, watch them. They are not going to steer you wrong. Weather Service here locally, also a great resource. We just want as many people to be aware of the situation as possible. So those are my takes on it tonight. We'll be revisiting on these platforms periodically leading up to this, event with Beryl over the weekend / early next week. But I'm going to go and get my graphics in order and try to catch this 10 p.m. update so I can have that info fresh on our 10 o'clock news this evening. Hey, I hope you had a great 4th of July. I hope you're going to enjoy whatever fireworks display you're about to watch here. Enjoy the time off if you've got it, and then we'll start really focusing on this storm and continue to focus on it over the weekend as it nears our viewing area. So stay safe, have fun tonight.